back when we were, well, we still are, but doing mission trips to El Salvador. I forgot what I was going to say about that. I wanted to sign up for one of your trips now, but that ain't happening. So not right away anyway. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The pastor at Asbury asked me to speak about the mission trips. And you know, I was so into it when I was speaking that the issue of time never crossed my mind. I just kept talking. And the next day I saw him in his office and he said, "That was quite a message yesterday." I go, "Yeah." I go, how long was I anyway?" He says, "You were close to an hour." So I was going to tell you guys to buckle your seat belts. Okay. It all started with pulmonary fibrosis. So I had this shortness of breath, and I mean, probably 5 years or so before the operation, I would get short of breath walking upstairs and stuff. And my pulmonologist at one point asked me, would you be interested in a lung transplant? And I never did study or look up exactly how involved that was, but I now know. It probably a good thing I didn't look at it, but it's a pretty drastic operation, as you might imagine. So I started the process with Brigham Hospital up in Boston, and after a year of testing, they rejected me. They said the two reasons were a care team. They wanted more people, you know, that would help me out after the surgery, and I guess I didn't put enough. But and heart disease. They'd done a catheterization, and they saw a little bit. They described it a little bit of blockage, you know. So fast forward a year after they denied me, I was asked if I still wanted it, and I said, "Yeah, sure." And the doctor goes, "Well, you know, they do these at Mass General as well." I said, "Well, I didn't know that." And so he called, and I started the process all over again. Took another year to do all the testing. So we're 2 years into it. At that point, I'm pushing the envelope of being too old for the operation, and they told me that. And I didn't really accept it, and I just kept praying. We all kept praying, and so bear with me here. On the second go around at Mass General, I decided there's some things you can do something about, you know, and there's some things you can't. You can't do anything about the results of testing, medical testing, right? You just go there, you do what they say, and they analyze it. Well, as far as the care team went, I figured I can do something about that. So I went to George and I said, George, I'm going to need some help when I get, come home. And so he put it on the church website, and it was, you could check 2 boxes. One was, I'll drive Mike to Boston when necessary. And the second was, I will sit with Mike so Sharon can get out and do shopping and whatnot. Well, 34 people signed up, and it was not just this church, but it was neighbors, and it was, it was amazing. And so I made up a spreadsheet, and it was their name, address, telephone number, cell phone number, email address, right? All in one line, right? And so it came time to meet with the social worker there, and she said, well, what are you gonna do for care team? And I gave her a 2-page spreadsheet, and I'll never forget the look on her face. She flipped up in the 2nd page, and she looked up at me and she goes, Mr. Kelley, I'm not going to call all these people. I go, no, you don't have to. I said, they're there, trust me. So after that, every doctor that I saw said something to the effect like, are you the one that had a lot of people on your care? Yeah, I am. I'm the guy. So they knew who I was. So the operation was, those in Kathy's class will remember the way I got the word. I was only on the list for 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, actually. And we were in Sunday school class, and my daughter-in-law burst into the room. We had just barely started, and she points to me and she goes, we gotta go. I go, what are you talking about? You get on the list, okay, but then it's not in your mind. We gotta go. And finally it dawned on me what she was talking about. They had a lung, and we gotta go. And so we went and they did some prep stuff, but mostly sedated me. And then 4 o'clock in the morning, they tell me, we went in for the operation. And it's all a timing issue, getting the new lung and wherever it came from. And the donor, they call it harvesting, I think, the organ. And they fly it back here wherever, it originated. I was always thinking of the family that lost somebody, that the lungs are in my chest right now. I can't even wrap my mind around that. So anyway, do you know what the date, I'll open this up. Do you know what the date, November 6th, the significance of that date? Does anybody know? Oh.
World War II.
Huh?
World War II.
No. It's the date that I got the lungs in 23. So I just passed 2 years with these lungs. And it was, they had told me that I could expect to be somewhat normal, feel somewhat normal, a year after the operation. Well, I was still going back and forth to the hospital with different complications. But I think 3 or 4 times, back up to, I went to Kent for something, and I couldn't breathe. Well, they had it in my record that they had to call Boston to the transplant unit anytime I saw them. And every time they did, Boston would say, send him up, and up I'd go. So then I stopped going to the local hospital. I said, I know where we're going, just go. So we did all that. When I finally left the hospital or the rehab center, Spalding, I had, it was August of 24, I guess, and I had pushed the doctors to discharge me. I was at 134 pounds. I had gone in there at 209, so I was still am, but try to find some information on how to gain weight. You can find plenty of information to lose weight, but not. The nutritionist kept, and they were limiting my diet because of the heart, So, by the way, up there in Boston, they did 3 different catheterizations and put stents in. It's quite a place. If I had a problem with I had a little pain behind my eye, and boy, see the neurologist, see the, this, the that. They had an eye doctor that came right to my bedside with all the equipment that you would find in an office, and tested me. So it was a good place to be, just for that matter. So the operation was 9 hours. During that time, they tell me that I had 2 heart attacks during the operation. The more I talk, I hope the more you understand that this isn't my work. This isn't anything I did or we did other than pray. But you can't make this stuff up, So I came home, and just before I came home, the head doctor of the transplant unit, Dr. Keller, he came to my bedside. I pulled up a chair. He was a nice guy. We used to talk a lot anyway. And he goes, Mr. Kelley, he says, we were just, your team was just talking about you out in the hallway. They used to do that. And he said, one of the other doctors asked me, how does Mr. Kelley keep upbeat? He's been in and out, and it was almost 1.5 years at least that I was in the hospital or the rehab, right? And I go, you want to know the answer? He goes, yeah. I leaned in. I said, I offer everything, all this, as a sacrifice up to Jesus. And he didn't, no big, he could have been Jewish, I don't know. He could have been Jewish, but I had several opportunities to, I had a chaplain that kept coming to my room. I had to be in a single room that was controlled. The air was controlled, so that I didn't catch any germs from anybody else, I guess. But it was quite when the bill came in, or if you've ever done this, but the last one I saw was 2,700,000 or something. It drained our account. So, anyway, the last week when I was going to get out, I was in pretty rough shape, but my wife Sharon tried to top me, and she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I was like, okay, I'm going home no matter what, because I was going to take care of her. Well, it kind of flipped the script here. I did come home, but I couldn't help her at all. I was weak and barely could walk. And she was fine. She recovered from that quickly, and it fixed the problem that we were having. We thought that she might be medication or something. She was doing some bizarre stuff, I'll just say that. And we actually had family meetings on that program where you can do it remotely and talk with doctors, and because we were concerned. And the funny thing is, Ashley, remember the person that busted into our room, our I almost call it catechism, our Sunday school class. She's a nurse. And like a year before any of this happened, she decided to become a nurse practitioner. And when you do that, you have to name an area of, like they divide it up. And she chose surgical neurology. And that was right, and she was the one, I wasn't there, but she was the one that diagnosed, or that thought something was really wrong, and got Sharon to the hospital. They operated the same night, and it was a benign tumor, but Sharon and I talk often, and one of the things that we both kind of think is the help and the prayers and the visits that I got. We just don't know how to thank you enough for what you've done. Everybody, some did, and I had people that, really came through. So I know that I see new faces because I haven't been here, but in fact, I'll say something to somebody like, remember when we went fishing at this pond last year? And they go, no, Mike, that was 3 years ago, So 2 years are like just gone, But I'm back, and I've not been fishing yet, but I'm close. But so no, I just want to tell you that I believe all of this is peppered with miracles, okay? And I shouldn't be standing here by any stretch. I shouldn't be standing here, When I had the operation, they told me that 48% of my lungs were hardened. That's what happens. Pulmonary fibrosis, your areas of your lung harden, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. So, but 48% of my lungs were gone. And so, I mean, you guys saw me carry the bottle of oxygen. I dragged it around. I always saved a bottle of oxygen for, I was ordering like 15 tall ones a week. And it was to go out and see the grandsons play baseball or whatever. And so I've lost it, but I was going to tell you in closing that I've been in this church since 1988, I guess, 89. And started out, I'll talk to the young men, you know, that are just new to the church. Started out just helping out on stuff, you know. They needed something fixed. You know, a group of men are doing it, church yard cleanup, all that. Started just, and then they started, there was a Sunday school class, and I started going to Sunday school. And Mark was teaching it. And more than a seed was planted at that point, you know, but it really came to fruition when, just before all this happened. I had never said that I truly believe that Jesus died for my sins. I grew up Catholic, I didn't have to. And, but really, you don't have to. I mean, you got a catechism, not a Bible. But I'd like the men, young men, to really take an effort to volunteer for something, you know, and you'll get to meet people. You'll come to maybe bond with certain people. That's what happens. And next thing you know, you're 72 and you're telling everyone that you're a Christian. So, or living your life like a Christian would. So, I'm going to close with a prayer. And it's a bit off the subject, but it's been on my heart for a while. I want to pray for the state of our country. There's a lot of people that are scared. There's a lot of people that are don't have food now. And I would just encourage everybody here to knock on their neighbor's door and say, just ask, are you okay? Do you need me to run an errand or anything, you know? Because some people won't ask if you call them, but if you knock on the door, you'd be surprised how grateful they are. I've already done that a couple times, and one was a customer. I knew her husband had died, and I hadn't talked to her in, well, a long time. And we sat and talked for quite a while. She was like, "Thank you for coming over." You know that. So just, I challenge you to do that. Just seek out somebody, a couple of people, and ask them how they're doing, and if you can do anything for them. So, amen.